did your guys' weekend go? Were you able to journal? Were you able to look around in your life and to see things you were really grateful for? And also from our week before, were you able to continue to tell yourself how enough you are and to continue to repeat these things so that they become a bigger part of your life? If you haven't, that's totally okay, because this course isn't about like checklists and passing off assignments and due dates and all that stuff. It's just about learning at your own pace and about things that resonate with you, because the things that truly will help you out are going to be different things. You're going to learn different things than your sister, your mom, or your friend, because this is just all about a journey from life and about finding out who you really are. So it's okay if you didn't do those things, but I would encourage you to work on them because they're very useful and very helpful. Honestly, just know that you're doing great. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed or stressed about this, and we know we've been going over a lot of different things with the past 2 weeks and that we've been covering a lot of content and all that jazz. But I would ask that you would ask yourself why you did or did not do these assignments, and just be honest with yourself. Don't make excuses, don't come up with reasons why that aren't honest. Just truly ask yourself, like, was I busy? Did I just totally forget? And then try and do better for this next week ahead of us, because honestly, as we can look at ourselves and find places to improve and honestly do that without any shame or guilt and just move forward and try to be better, that's really where the magic comes and the change truly comes in your life.
Today we're going to talk about shame. A lot of people only like to go over the good and easy and like just beautiful things of life, but we have found that if you want to fully appreciate a rose, you've got to acknowledge not only its wonderful beauty, but also the fact that it has thorns. Because then that way, when or if the thorns scratch you, it's not going to be a surprise. You'll know that it could happen.
And just knowing that it has thorns also makes it easier for you to stay away from the scratches, and that way you're not surprised if it hurts you.
Some things that get in the way of love and belonging is fear, shame, and the fear of being vulnerable.
Let's talk about shame. So there are 3 things that you need to know about shame. We all have it, unless you have a mental illness and lack the ability to feel empathy or human connection. Other than that, we all have it. Most of us, this is number 2, most of us are afraid to talk about it. And the number 3, the less we talk about it, the more of an issue it becomes. The bigger it just sits there and festers. It's like a broken arm. If you have a broken arm and you just refuse to acknowledge it and you just ignore it and don't get any help, you don't talk to anyone about it, and you just pretend it's functioning normally, it gets worse and worse and worse and will heal wrongly, and you can't use it and it still hurts, right? There's no benefit to ignoring that your arm is broken. The same as with shame. If you sit there and you feel like you did something wrong and did something bad and you feel shame coming in, which is the feeling of like, I am bad, and then you just sit there and you let it fester and you let it fester, it's gonna hurt. And the more you let it fester and the more you don't talk about it, the bigger it becomes. It spreads kind of like a fungus and mold and yummy stuff. It just becomes bigger and bigger and just festers. It thrives in darkness and secrecy.
Shame is a fear of being unlovable. As Brené Brown says, shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Shame is rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear that we won't be included, fear that we're not enough, fear that people won't love us or that we won't be successful in life. Ironically, being successful can be as scary as failing.
We often don't tell our stories because we are afraid people won't like us, that our worst story will become our defining moments and the story of our life. This is not true. It might take some time to get over, but it doesn't mean that that's who we are for the rest of our lives. You need to remember that even your worst moment is just a tiny sliver and a tiny piece of who you really are. Some people think that if we talk about things like shame, it will give the shame power. This is not the case. Research has shown that the more we talk about shame, the less power it has. Shame needs secrecy, silence, and judgment to grow. It dies when it is spoken about and met with empathy and love.
Some people mistaking guilt, which is healthy, with shame, which is not healthy. Shame is damaging because it's the thought that we are bad, whereas guilt is empowering because it's the thought that we did bad. But when you disassociate yourself with your actions, it shows not only are you not your actions, but you can change your actions. You have power over what you're going to do next. So with shame, you think we are bad. It's part of me, I'm bad, and there's nothing I can do about it, whether I like it or not. With guilt, you go, I did something bad, I did something wrong, but since it was an action, I can change not the past, but I can change my future actions so I don't repeat the same mistakes. Shame can creep up on all of us.
This past fall, my mom and my sister and a couple friends went up to Long Beach, and we were gonna go surfing there. And I'm not the best at trying new things because it scares me, it terrifies me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this just because it's good to try new things and I'm just trying to overcome my fear. And so then we went to the surfing house thing and we're like, hey, can we rent a wetsuit and a surfboard? And we're talking and the guy is sitting there and he's like, so have you guys like taken lessons before? And we're like, no, we've never surfed before at all. Like, he's like, oh, well, you need a surfing instructor because like the waves, they get super big and there's rip tides and you can get brought up to the current and just like killed. And there's an island and you can also get caught in the rip current up there. And I was like, so I was just like terrified and I was like, I'm gonna be out in the middle of the ocean, there's gonna be huge waves, I'm gonna like can't touch the ground, I'm gonna drown, I'm gonna get caught by a current and brought out into the middle of the ocean. And I was so embarrassed that I didn't say anything for like an hour and a half. I honestly just sat there and just in my head I was just getting more and more and more and more anxious and terrified of this. And I was right before we went out, we were sitting on the picnic bench eating food and I was like, okay, I really think I'm gonna die. And I said that out loud. And they're like, no, you're not gonna die. We're gonna be where you can touch. It's not gonna be scary. You're always gonna be able to touch. The shore isn't that far away. We went and we did it and it was so much fun, and I wasn't a pro, but like it was lots of fun and I tried something new. But if I hadn't have said anything, it would have been miserable and I would have thought I was gonna die the whole time. And that, honestly, when I think back on it, if I had have not said anything and just kind of sat there and let my worries consume me, I most likely would have just thought of an excuse to sit on the beach with my mom and not do it. And then I would have missed out on this opportunity to find out that surfing is fun and like, yes, it's hard, but also you can do it. Like I stood up, I could do it, and it was so much fun. But if I hadn't have said anything, then I wouldn't have done it. I would have missed out on that fun memory and the opportunity to learn something new.
What does shame look like? Dr. Hartling, the director of Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies, says that shame looks different for each person. Some people, depending on who you are, when they feel shame, they'll hide and try to draw the least amount of attention to themselves and like kind of like shut down the more outgoing parts of them and just keep small and quiet. Others people will just be like, okay, I had a shameful experience and I'm bad, so I'm gonna try everything. Like they just start pleasing everybody, trying to like, they do anything within their power to make people around them happy, which sounds good, but it's not. Constantly over and over and over putting away what they actually need and think to make that feeling of shame go away, but it doesn't help. And then some people decide, they get so angry with their shame that they decide to fight shame with shame. And so they become violent and mean and they just start using shame as a weapon because they have it inside of them and they don't know how to get rid of it. Each one of us use these 3 different tactics to hide or to deal with shame. But each one of these tactics, whether it's hiding away, trying to overly please, or to fight shame with shame, it pushes ourselves away from who we actually are.
Recognizing what you do to deal with shame is one of the first steps in disempowering shame in your life. One thing we can do to help us become more shame resilient is to try something new. We often are afraid of failing. Failing invites shame to visit. In order to feel like we can get up and we can continue to keep going, trying something new is a good way to come to know ourselves better and to combat some of these feelings of inadequacy and shame that we feel. Just to help solidify this idea of trying new things, we want you to write down 10 things that you would love to do. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it entails, so just write it down. And anything, it could be anything in the world, whether it's like hot air balloon or deep sea diving or jumping on your sister, something you've never done before. Write down these 10 things and post it on your wall. This will help you become more familiar with the idea of trying new things and will help to combat some of the fear that comes.